Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the SEDA regular meeting to order with roll call.
Board Member Van Gordon. Here. Board Member Weber. Here. Board Member Moe. Here. Vice Chair Rodney. Here. Board Member Doyle.
Here. Here. Can you not hear me?
Board Member Doyle, can you hear us? Okay. Chair Pishner.
Yes.
And Board Member Lovell.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor? Then take a roll vote.
Roll,
Please.
Board Member Van Gordon.
Yes.
Board Member Weber.
Yes.
Board Member Moe.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodney.
Yes.
Board Member Doyle.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. Chair Pishner.
Yes.
And Board Member Lovell.
Thank you. I got 5, 6 yeses, and 1 absent. Next item.
Next item is business from the audience.
So I need to read a statement from communications. So there is one time designated for public testimony this evening under business from the audience. If you are attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the city recorder's desk in Jesse, Maine, and turn them into the city recorder. If you are joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows. Anyone in person at the Jesse main room, and secondly, anyone who has raised their hand virtually and Zoom. Is there anybody here? Negative.
Anybody virtual? Does not appear we have any hands for business from the audience.
Okay, next item.
Next item is new business. This would be the budget committee appointment, and Neil Obringer is here for the staff report.
Good evening, board members. Neil Obringer, Budget and Procurement Manager in the Finance Department. The item before you tonight is the appointment of Colby Phillips as the SEDA downtown representative on the Budget Committee. So Colby was the only applicant, and he just completed his first term on the Budget Committee. And so since we only received one application, and since Colby's already completed a term, we've foregone the interview process and brought his name forward straight to appointment. So with that, unless there are questions, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint. Looking for the name. Colby Phillips, the SEDA Budget Committee for the next term. Second.
All those in favor, take a roll, please.
Board Member Van Gordon.
Yes.
Board Member Weber.
Yes.
Board Member Moe.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodney.
Yes.
Board Member Doyle.
Yes.
Chair Pishner.
Yes.
And Board Member Lovell.
It's been approved. The motion has been approved with a vote of 6 yes and 1 absent. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is the Glenwood Relocation Services update, and Ellie Camp is here for the staff report.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. This item, I'm going to take some time to introduce it and explain it so you have a better understanding of what this means for the folks in Glenwood. So give me a little bit of the time to get there. Okay, so today we are starting a conversation and sharing information about relocation services for 12 residential tenants in Glenwood and 7 commercial tenants. I made a point to kind of clarify the 2 different types of tenants we have because we have 2 different types of information for them. The information we have for the commercial tenants is a little bit more complete than the residential tenants, but we're just going to share what we have today. I want to note that Christina is virtual for any legal questions or explanations that we may need before. Okay, so these 2 types of relocations will need a decision from SEDA at some point in time, whether or not to relocate the tenants. This decision is necessary at some point because the future redevelopment of the layout. So we need to kind of let these people know what's coming, and when they need to move, if that's the decision of the board. The alternative to relocation is having the tenants stay in place and leave on their own in order to redevelop in the future. A little bit of background on relocation. We have hired a professional service relocation for Universal Field Services. They do this for government all the time in terms of large transit projects, redevelopment sites, things like that. So they are familiar with the laws and the process that we need to move these people through in the future. The report in your packet was an initial field study for 5 residential addresses. There are 7 commercial businesses in there too. They received a little bit more than a field study. They received interviews. So we get a better understanding of how their business could be impacted and what we need to consider for a potential move. This commercial business location, all 7 are in the same address, and it's called the Carvature Building. So if you reference your map in your packet, it is just north of address 295 on North Brooklyn, very close to the river. What this draft report shows us is a preliminary estimate for potential relocation costs based off of visual analysis, property information, and for the commercial tenants only, those interviews with them to understand the impacts to their business. To get more granular information on costs, interviews are conducted. These have not been done for the residential tenants. Interviews provide an understanding of the families and the folks in these residences and the type of housing accommodation options Universal Field Services would need to look into for them. The end goal of interviews is to determine their eligibility for relocation services, and then to provide them with suitable housing options if they are deemed eligible. Whenever these interviews occur, they talk to the families and the folks in these housing units to understand their family size, if they have any ADA accommodations that are not being met in their current facility, if they have pets that need to move with them. And considerations are taken for potential future options that look at credit history, income, and any criminal history that needs to be considered too. So these interviews give us a good insight into what potential options for these families and these folks are out in the Eugene Springfield area. Sometimes housing options look like relocation and renovation of their existing home should suitable land be available. Housing options can also result in folks being eligible for home ownership. There are a range of other options depending on individual tenant circumstances, but the point that I want to make for you all right now is that most tenants come out in a better housing situation, more stable, more space, more suitable for what their family or the individuals in these homes need. Residential relocation benefits include things like moving expenses, housing support for 42 months, and advisory services to gather them these options in our community. Commercial relocation benefits include moving expenses, site search costs, and reestablishment costs for the businesses. These commercial relocation benefits include, or they require adequate documentation that these are in fact businesses, legal businesses. A couple of specifics for the residential properties. On the map, SEDA or the city is under contract or in ownership for all of the residential addresses indicated with the pink outline. We acquired these properties with tenants in each purchase and sale agreement, so that's why we have folks in these homes now. Existing residential tenants are managed through a property management company on behalf of SEDA and the city. These residences have all received notice that SEDA may decide to relocate them in the future. They have been instructed to abide by their current lease, pay their rent on time, do nothing that puts them in a compromising situation of losing their current housing. Moving or eviction for cause would result in folks becoming ineligible for relocation benefits, and they have been communicated that.
I'll point a clarification on the map. Just because the outline appears, maybe because I don't have my glasses on, kind of a little bit hard to read. It looks to me like there is only one that does not have the outline. Is that?
Oh, thank you. That is address number 288. That's the Cooper property, and we'll be talking about that property on the 24th. Thanks, Nancy. So that is some specifics about the residential sites. A couple of specifics for the commercial sites, the 7 tenants and the one at shared address. The city acquired this building in 2016 with the tenants included. They share equipment in there. It's a group of makers. It was the former pipe organ facility, and a lot of these folks kind of have developed a little commercial community for them together. What we know about this building currently is that it is between 2 important setbacks whenever we study the Glenwood master planning area. It's between the riparian setback and the 150-foot greenway boundary, which limits what type of future development that can occur in that space. Why that's important to you all is the fact that if this building no other buildings like this building could be built in this greenway area without consideration from SEDA. So it's special that we have this building very close to the river in this site. And these 7 tenants have kind of made a space for them in their overtime. So this building could stay and receive the maintenance and repair needed. That's kind of the extent of development that can occur for existing buildings in a spot like that. And thus the tenants can stay too if you so choose. So that's kind of like the little bit more information we have about the commercial resident or the commercial tenants. We have a little bit more specified costs on what the relocation could be. And we know that their building could stay in the master planning grand scheme of things. So I'm just going to remind you of some of the direction asked of you on your AISs. Knowing the future redevelopment of Glenwood and the planning efforts coming, and that they're about at least a year out minimum. We know that a lot can happen regarding development in the meantime. We will need to relocate these tenants should development be on the near horizon. However, tonight we are educating you all on the current conditions and asking for the direction to proceed with interviews for the residential tenants and a potential decision point regarding the commercial tenants. We also know that you don't have to make that, or you don't have to make that decision now. As defined, the commercial relocation has more complete information, as I mentioned, more complete information available, knowing the cost estimate and in a rough totality and the building's location for the future. So that's the background that I have to set for you all. I went through it pretty quickly. Happy to take questions. And again, Christina is available for any legal information we may have. Yes.
And you might have mentioned this, but maybe just because I missed it. This is not a 3-month process. This is like a long process. So it's, the interviews is just the beginning of it. And then so people have lots of time to make decisions over the course of 18 months or 2 years or something, right?
Yes, I don't have confirmation on the total time frame, but you're right, it's not a fast process. We have a lot of families to consider in this area too, and we know that housing options in our community are limited to begin with. So coming up with options, we've heard from Universal Field Services that coming up with options has been a challenge in kind of the Pacific Northwest region because of the limitations on housing.
Sean?
I think I'm comfortable with going out and doing the interviews on the residential tenants. I do have a question about the commercial tenants. So did I hear you? I think I heard that correctly, that you could, that building in the grand scheme of things could stay.
Mhm.
Now, and that's the one that's got the foundries out back. Okay, I guess. Does our developer have an opinion here?
That's a great question. The development team and the master planning team are looking to find a way to keep whatever character we can in this area. There's not always a good feeling with new development that feels all new. And we know that this area has a lot of value and a lot of history. So there's interest in maintaining whatever buildings we can to the degree that, we have a use for them and they are kind of worth the investment of keeping.
That's where my head's at too, is I think I'm interested if in the plan that this building could stay and, because it's interesting and it's a cool little story. And I think the boundaries bring a lot to it, but also that those folks, right, are the type of makers that make Glenwood really cool. But I would be interested in more information, but my instinct would be to let them stay. And I'm sorry, the other follow-up question I had is, based on the development plan, based on the master plan, would we get stuck in a position where that weird position where you can only invest in the inside of the building, that you can't, that we can't make investments on the exterior of the building?
With regards to the Carver building, I think, and this is something that we can learn more about. Right now, we know that building cannot be extremely modified because of the location it's at in the Glenwood master planning area. We're going to learn a lot more about how that whole 30-acre site flows and connects to each other in the next couple of weeks. You have an update coming in early to mid-May that should shine some more light on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
We don't need a motion or anything. You just want us to be like.
That's just for information right now.
think so. Yeah, good. Unless you would like to make a decision about the Carpenter building right now.
We could wait, and as we get more information, it'd be easier to keep. But we can do with it. Hey. All business.
Yeah, your next item is the lease review of the Memorial Building and Alley Campus here for the staff report.
It's me again. Hi.
Well, that was fast.
The Blue Mackenzie developer and construction crews have identified the need for kind of a staging and a coordination space while the building is under construction. The memorial site is a SEDA owned asset, and it's right across the street from the Blue Mackenzie construction site. It was most recently leased to the city and subleased to St. Vincent de Paul for the warming shelter. This resource could be utilized by SEDA to support the Blue Mackenzie project success. Typically, we see folks use a construction trailer for sites like this, but we have a building right across the street and we are in a semi-dense downtown. So a draft lease is included in your packet at a nominal cost of $1. And I want to let you know too that SEDA's budget for the next fiscal year includes utilities for this building. But it is anticipated that the developer will have to pay for any extras like internet or anything special that they may need for their business. We have the lease drafted from May 2023 to September 2024, which is the projected construction window. And I always like to say that there's potential for that time window to change as the project gets underway. So you have an action report on your agenda item for the lease for the Blue Mackenzie. The memorial building lease for the Blue Mackenzie project team.
Any questions?
I got one comment.
Yeah.
I actually think it would be fine to extend the lease a little bit longer. Right, like that way we're not trying to just wrap the whole thing up in September, you know, and let it be at Nancy's discretion.
We mentioned that, I think, that's built into the contract, right?
Yes, and we can have Christina quickly speak to that if you'd like some clarification. Christina, could you speak to the flexibility of the time frame in the lease?
Yeah, so the lease is drafted to run through September of 2024, but we could provide some automatic renewal provisions or automatic extension provisions upon mutual agreement by the parties. We do have a maximum end date of September 30th, 2026, and that basically is the drafted in there as the longest that could be extended before it would definitely need to come back to the SEDA board currently. And the intent there is that this doesn't end up sort of dragging out uses of that building for a that are not really specific to the limited construction use. Because if construction is spanning out past 2026, there's probably something else going on, and we want to take another look at whether it's consistent with the urban renewal plan at that point. But definitely, I think it was the intent to have it be able to be extended without needing to come back to SEDA board, but I can put some more specific information, specific clause in there about that before it comes to Nancy for signature.
A quick question, Ally, you may have mentioned it before, but I don't recall when we met. Is it normal for us to pay utilities for somebody that's occupying a building for their purpose for profit?
I know utilities have been included in the SEDA budget in the past. I don't know if that is precedent or normal. Sam, would you know?
Egan was part of the utility fees, the warming center previously.
Yeah, but that's a different.
Yeah, true.
Please, Christina, you're all getting.
I believe that for this building, actually, the precedent has not been for SEDA to pay utilities. I think the city paid the facilities for Egan through the sublease. I don't believe they came out of SEDA's budget. And then immediately prior to that, it was purchased by SEDA and leased back to Willamette Lane. Willamette Lane obviously being the entity that sold it to SEDA, and they continued paying their own utilities until that lease back ended. So it would be not typical. However, the point of this lease is to subsidize some of the costs. So it would be also clarifying it would be the basic level of utilities. Any specialized any specialized construction, garbage disposal, beyond the bare minimum is not provided for in the lease, internet or fiber services that SEDA wouldn't otherwise be paying for was not drafted in the lease.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I knew the history of that building. But I'm also, and not that I'm trying to be skimpy as far as not willing to pay, but I'm just a little bit gun shy on if we are setting a precedent for future projects, which more than likely is going to occur. And so are we going to be losing the ability to say, no, we got the space here, you guys can use it, but you can pay for it while you use it, just like they would if they had a construction trailer on site. They have electricity, the construction on site, the construction company would pay that electricity. But if we have more projects down the road that's going to be using the Egan Center, and we have a precedence that we pay for their utilities, are we going to be basically stuck into doing that into perpetuity for every project we have out of SEDA? Just, I mean, you know what I'm saying, Christina? I mean, it's again, I know I sound super cheap here, but I'm not. I'm afraid fearful of precedents.
I think I'm not as concerned about precedent in terms of anything legal precedents with how we establish the lease terms. I think it's pretty clear that this lease is intended to help subsidize the project costs and keep costs down. I don't think the SEDA board will be at all obligated to approve similar terms in any future project should similar facts to this even come up. I think the only other time that I could find in the last decade that the city or SEDA had done anything similar to this for construction management was a lease to ODOT's contractor for the I-5 bridge construction. And in that case, they actually had to extend utilities to the site. So the construction company paid for that because it wasn't something that the city would have been doing anyway. But I think that, that ultimately who should pay for the utility is a question for the SEDA board.
Okay. That's all I want to bring up, make sure that the board knew that when we were okay with that. So it's something that's not new. I mean, I should say it's something that's new. And we don't have any estimates of that, so. Looking for a motion.
Are you ready for a motion?
Ma'am.
Okay. I would like to move. The SEDA board directs the city manager to lease the property at 735 and 765 A Street, commonly known as the Memorial Building, to Blue Mackenzie Apartments LLC for use as temporary office space and construction staging during construction of the Blue Mackenzie site for nominal rent.
It has been moved and seconded. All those. Roll call, please.
Board Member Van Wert.
Yes.
Board Member Weber.
Yes.
Board Member Lowe.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodney.
Yes.
Board Member Doyle.
Yes.
Chair Pictionary.
Yes.
And Board Member LeBlanc.
The motion approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 1 absent. Motion approved, and on that, we're going to adjourn this meeting.
Thanks, Sally.
Yeah.
You.
Bye, Valerie.
Did it.